Welcome to a Faithful God podcast. I'm your host, Tammy, and today on the show, my friend Dena is back as she shares her unusual experience with human trafficking. So grab those earbuds and your favorite beverage and join me for today's show. Well, hey friend, welcome. Happy New Year. Happy 2023. I am so excited to be back here again and our first episode of 2023. So listen, January is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And if you've been following me for any length of time, you know that a couple of years ago, I joined the anti-trafficking movement. Now, here's the thing, my friend. I say this all the time, and I want you to understand that I realize that not everyone is called to the same mission field. Therefore, not everyone is called to the anti-human trafficking movement. However, I believe with every fiber of my being that every single person living on this earth, needs to be aware of human trafficking because there's just so many myths behind human trafficking, the way, so many of us think that what human trafficking looks like, and so much of it is false. It's not true at all. So I'm really excited for Dena to come on, and the day that she told me about her experience with human trafficking, to be perfectly honest with you, it completely blew my mind. It was an aspect, even learning everything that I'm learning. And by the way, I still have so much more to learn about this, this industry, criminal industry, but her story actually was one that is very unique, and just wanted to really put this out there so that people are aware. So let's talk about human trafficking very quickly. You've probably heard me say, again, if you've been following me for any length of time, that human trafficking is a $150 billion a year industry. I'm going to say that again, my friend, $150 billion a year. And it's growing rapidly. In fact, it's the fastest growing criminal activity in the world. And the thing is these traffickers are so dang smart. And I hate to even give them that kind of credit, but they're so incredibly smart. And they realize, with drug trafficking, that is all over the place, all over the world. With drug trafficking, they sell their product, and forgive me because I know that is so heinous to use the word product when we're talking about human trafficking. But from a business standpoint, drug traffickers can sell their product one time. Human traffickers can sell their product again and again and again. So it's far more lucrative for them. My friend, I want you to know another myth that, human trafficking or traffickers, are only men. That is so false. There are so many women that are also traffickers. So, and also I want you to know that this looks different in every culture. And what I mean by that, when we're talking about human trafficking in the United States, most of the time, these victims know they're traffickers because they've been groomed. They've been made to feel like they've met the man or the woman of their dreams, that they are going to fulfill everything in them. They've gotten to know them so much, and they will spend months and months and months grooming their victims. And then once, they get them, they move them away and traffic them. And the thing is, a lot of human trafficking victims actually go home at night, believe it or not. They're not locked away in a cage like so often, we think they are. They actually get to go home I don't even know. They go home every night. That's what I'm trying to say. So there are a lot of myths surrounding it. When we're talking about other countries, there are some countries in the world where it is, where these kids, because this is the culture and a way for their family to make money, there are babies that are trafficked at 3 years old, my friends. I know that's a hard one to hear. It's all hard to hear. It's heinous and it's awful. And that's why I feel like it is so important, because if you sit there and are thinking right now that, oh, you know what, this doesn't happen where I live, I want you to know that that is not true. Human trafficking is happening in every community around the world. So we've got to be aware of it. We all have young kids in our life, and we've got to be aware of the signs, the things that are going on, and just the things that surround human trafficking. We need to be aware of it. So friend, I'm not going to make you wait, any longer. On with my conversation with Dena Adams. Hi, Dena. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you again for having me. I love our conversations.
Me too, Dena. Me too. And for our listeners, I will actually put in the show notes the other episode Dena was in with, but gosh, we just met each other not long ago at all. And it's just been incredible to watch God working in our lives. And it's so like to bring us together. You live out in the west, in the West, and here I am on the East Coast. And yeah, God has just brought us together, and all these things and ways that he is moving it's been so fun and such an incredible ride for sure.
I love how he moves fast.
Yes.
When we do the action he's been waiting for us to do. Yes. Before this, we were talking, and I shared with Tammy how I've made decisions about things, but it wasn't until I fully committed to the actions.
Yeah.
Did God start being able to pull things in? And I was listening to a sermon from Pastor Michael Todd this morning. I listen to him all the time, him and Craig Groeschel from Life Church and Stephen Furtick and all them. But he was talking about how we have vision. He goes, but it's still an imagination until it is written on paper. It's not a vision until it's written down. And God says to write the plan and make it plain, right?
Right.
Well, he said something in this sermon this morning that really caught me. It's not until it's written down does God have permission for it to enter our world.
Oh,
we will ask God to come in and help and do and protect and all these things. But until we actually write it down and write the vision, that's giving God permission, because, God doesn't force anything on us.
Yeah, he's a gentleman. Yeah.
Right. He says that doesn't glorify me. In the sermon, he was saying it doesn't glorify God if God just does whatever he wants and makes us do whatever we want. We're not robots, right?
Right.
God says, I will be glorified when my children honor me. Right? So when you write it down, it gives permission for him to step in and finally say, okay. So when we say all the time, especially because of the topic we're going to be talking about today, when we say, where was God in this? Well, he's waiting in pain, hurting, watching his children not ask, not give him permission. We can ask, but if we don't believe he can do what we are asking, it's not giving him permission to act.
Yeah, man, that's so good. That is so good. And it is so true. So true. And, that's something I talk about in the community all the time is make that ask. You've got to pursue. You've got to seek God. You've got to make that ask for sure. That's really, really good. Yeah. And we were talking last night in Grow Your Faith Community that about Pastor Mike Todd and who I would love to have on the show sometime. That would just be a dream come true for me. And just because he's so powerful, and I know he would, speak to every single person and by
faith, we will believe in that for when the time is right.
Indeed. Exactly. Yes. That is exactly right. Exactly right. That is so good. So good. So we kind of skipped over. So I know for those of you who haven't met Dena or didn't listen to the previous podcast, again, I'll put that show in the show notes. But Dena, if you will, introduce yourself for us and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, so I'm Dena Adams. I live in Colorado. I am married. My husband and I have been together for 22 years. We have 5 kids together, his, mine, and ours. 4 of them are mine.
Wow.
2 are mine, 2 are ours, and 1 is his. So,
okay.
4 of them personally, I have birthed into this world.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
All of our kids are adults now.
Mhm.
I can't believe our oldest are almost 30. It's
Oh my
so
gosh.
strange to think of that.
Yeah.
And I am an entrepreneur. I have been an entrepreneur forever in my life. I grew up around entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
I had family who owned brick and mortar businesses back in the day and started businesses and owned stuff and all of that. And I've just always been a helper. I love to help and support others, and I'm really good at what I do, which is why I love it so much.
Mm.
Because I love when people tell me, oh, but that's so in your realm of things. Like it just comes natural to you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, but do I really want it to be natural to me? Not always, right? I didn't want business to be natural to me.
Yeah.
But this year I really owned that
Mhm.
God put in front of me. The last 7 years I have spent doing self-discovery life coaching
Mhm.
and really helping others see the greatness in themselves so they can go and use that to serve in this world. And what I realized, excuse me, looking back, is 90% of the time I was working with them, we were focused on business.
Mm. Mm.
So
Yeah.
this year I turned it around and I really listened to God and I leaned in deep
Mhm.
to his word and what he's telling me. And I'm now focusing on helping early entrepreneurs that are making under 10,000 a month.
Mhm.
I help them with what they need, when they need it, who they need, figuring out all the things, acting as that business sidekick who can be a sounding board and give them advice, because I do business consulting, I do business coaching, I do all of the things,
Mhm.
and systems are my favorite thing in the world. And so I help them set their business up for growth so they have something strong to grow on, so they don't hit that 3 to 5 year mark and go, I'm out, because
Mhm.
they're
Mhm.
drowning in everything going on. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And you're so good at it. And it is so important because as a solopreneur, yes, you're working. I mean, you're working for something more bigger. You want to build this team, but there's a lot of steps in between being a solopreneur and building a team. And it's so easy as an entrepreneur to get stuck in the mud of all of it. And you're just like, I always picture that like an octopus, like doing all the different things, because that's what we have
yes,
to do as solopreneurs. And so I love that you help put those systems in place so that people are ready, so that we are ready for that growth that we're hoping to see. So, yeah,
yeah,
I absolutely love that. So
thank you.
today we're going to talk about something a little different.
Yes.
You and I got on into this conversation before, and so today, and this is human. As you're listening to it, this is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and so you have quite a story. And I think it's so important to hear this story because I want people to see that human trafficking is happening everywhere. Like there
Mhm.
is not, if you think that you are in a community where human trafficking does not exist, I'm here to tell you that that is not true. It is in every single community. And while I believe it, we all have different mission fields. God doesn't call us to the same one. I really believe that human trafficking, that awareness is for everybody because we all have people in our lives who could, I mean, who the young kids and I mean this could affect each and every one of us, and
Mhm.
so that's why I think it's so important. And your story is one like from a completely different aspect, and so that's what I want to really get into today, just to help people see this. So if you will, you go ahead and start wherever you would like to. I
Yeah.
know you said you applied for a job, just a simple job. So yeah, so you
Yeah,
go ahead and start where you'd like to, and then I'll just jump in with questions wherever, if that's okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
So setting the tone is, this was back in, I think, 2004.
Mhm.
Our youngest was only 2 years old, and I was a newer stay-at-home mom. I started staying home in 2001, I think, is when I started staying home, when I became a stay-at-home mom. Okay,
Mhm.
before then I worked. My older kids were in daycare. I went to a job. I put myself through school. I did all that kind of stuff. So now I'm at home and I was feeling unfulfilled. And I was honestly terrified because in my mind, I would never be a good mom or a good wife. I never wanted, like, I decided at the age of 8, I was not going to be a mom or a wife. I was going to be a career woman. And I only wanted to be responsible for myself. So here I am trying to figure this whole thing out. And I was like, I feel like I have to have a job. I'm working, I'm at home. What can I do to help out financially? Right. So this was back in the day when online jobs were a newer thing, e-commerce, all that, but I wasn't going to start my own business. I just wanted to do like some data entry or do something really simple that would bring in a little bit of extra spending money, especially for the summers when the kids and I wanted to be out and about and doing the things when summer was in. Or when summer was happening. So I go online and I looked and searched for data entry, doing basic things. So I found a whole bunch of jobs. I probably applied for maybe 20 of them. And within days, and let me back up. Back then, you also had to have a way to get paid.
Oh, right.
I didn't want to give out my bank account number. So I got a free account through an online merchant, set myself up with them so I could receive payment. A few days, literally, like a couple of days later, I get a knock on my door.
This just blows me away. It really does.
I live in a, it's not a huge city. It's a college town, maybe 80,000 people, kind of offset from the main flow of the state that I live in.
Yeah.
And I get this knock at my door and I open it and there's 2 men in suits. And I kind of was like, what is happening?
Like Men in Black, 2 guys showing up.
It was kind of freaky.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Because here I am home alone with my kids and I'm at my door and there's these strange men and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
And immediately they said who they were, what they were with Homeland. They were with the Division of Homeland Security. They showed me their badge. They showed me their credentials, all that kind of stuff. And they said that I had applied for a job with a company that was flagged for human trafficking, and I lost it. I was like, I started crying. I was like really emotional about it.
Yeah.
And they're like, would you mind if we sat down and talked with you? And I said, no, that's fine. So they came in, we sat down and we talked, and I showed them like what jobs I had applied for, told them why I was doing it. We had a whole conversation around it. And they said, really what they were doing was trying to determine if I was involved in the human trafficking child pornography ring that was happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
did you realized it then when they were questioning? Not yet. Okay.
No, I didn't know that's what they were questioning me for. The way they did it was very, they were very gentle in their conversation. They weren't aggressive. They weren't abrasive. They didn't treat me like they were interrogating me. They're like, well, how did you come about this? Where did you find it? We're just doing they told me they were doing an investigation. Wow. So they didn't verbalize in a way that they were trying to find out if I was part of this. So I showed them on my computer. I said, well, here's everything that I was applying for. Here's why I was applying for jobs. And, here's what I was just looking to do. And I said, and so they picked out like 5 and said, so what was it that you were interested in? What do you think they do? And so I was telling them, and I said, well, basically, like, this is what this one says. This is what this one says. This one seems easy. I can sit here and do that. That's not a big deal.
Mhm.
There was nothing on there that stated it was international, because I stayed away from those.
Mhm.
Told them kind of the process I went through to choose what I chose.
Mhm.
And they said, oh, it makes me so emotional. They said, so this one job that you applied for, it's actually a child pornography membership site.
You're going to get
So
me
if I
crying
was
too.
to take that job, I would have been processing payments for that.
Yeah.
And it was heart-wrenching.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they instantly said, based on your reaction, we now know that you're not involved. And that was the one reason we showed up here in the first place.
Sure.
So then we have an ask. And they said, we have been trying, there have been many people that have applied for this job.
Mhm.
And we don't have anyone who will allow us to utilize their identity to continue the process to prove this, to take them down. Like, this is the last piece we need. Do whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
So they continued to use my identity through the merchant account that I was using, with my email address, with everything,
Mhm.
with all the accounts and everything that were involved. They continued to use my information.
Mhm.
And when all this came about, it all came out what the company was. They did eventually, they literally took my computer.
Mhm.
Right. They took my computer back to their office. They did whatever they needed to do. Then when it was done, they brought it back to me. They cleaned my computer, all that kind of stuff. So it was safe for me.
Mhm.
And they brought it back to me, and everything was fine. My computer was fine. It wasn't some crazy weird scam thing that people were, like, this was literally Homeland Security,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
when they brought it back, they told me that they were very grateful for my participation. It gave them the in that they needed
Mhm.
to find these people, and it spread. And I was always confused why Homeland Security was involved, and it wasn't
Mhm.
just like the local police or
Yeah.
whatever. And what
Yeah.
I found out later was this was a ring happening across was it 8 states and 2 or 3 countries?
My gosh.
So Texas, Colorado, there was like 8 states in the US that were involved, and 2 other countries that were involved. So that's why Homeland Security was involved, because it was international.
Oh my goodness.
And so they were able to get what they needed, and they were able to shut it down and arrest people and, save kids and all this stuff. Through this process, by the end of it, because of course this was public, this came to light that this happened. They wrote letters and contacted the providers of my services that they had used and stated, we are using this is what she's allowed us to do. We're utilizing her identity for this. She is not involved, all this stuff. So every company was fine. They let me keep my accounts. They didn't, everything except for one. And that was the merchant account company. And then I'm literally banned for life. I can't use it. They said, we don't care. It's not happening. And the one thing I love about that is this company was so set in their rules that it doesn't matter your involvement. If you're affiliated in any way,
Yeah.
you're out. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it makes it hard sometimes. Like, there's jobs I can't do. There's affiliate work I can't do. There's things I can't do because of that, which is fine. It's one of those things is what's the trade-off? The trade-off is saving lives, right?
Yeah.
It's freeing these children from the lives that they were living. And it was very surreal that this was happening in my little apartment.
Yeah, for sure. I
Right?
mean,
Like, you don't hear of these things. It doesn't happen to you. It doesn't happen to people you know.
mm-mm.
And so to have this happen, it was like living in a movie.
Yeah, I bet so.
And one day I woke up and was like, did that even happen? Was that real? Like, am I crazy? And because now it's over, right? It's done. They're dealing with whatever. I'm not a part of it anymore. They aren't using my information. Like, we're done.
Yeah.
Everything's finished. Didn't really happen. It was so
Yeah.
weird and so surreal and kind of scary because they're using your personal information. Right. So these people know my name, my email address, my information. They know that. So then it was on the flip side of, now that this has all happened, what's going to happen to the people on the other side?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was kind of scary at first.
I bet it was.
To wait and not know.
So what was when they took your computer and the time and at what, and then they brought it back to you and got what they needed, brought it back to you. How long was that? What was the time frame there?
Oh, I'm so bad at time frames.
Me too.
I want to say it was only a couple of months.
Really?
Maybe a month and a half to 2 months. Well, because like they said, they had been and I didn't say this part, but what I did say was they had already had most of what they needed an in, right? I was the in, I was that last. They're like, we've already asked so many people and everyone has said no. They don't want to be involved because it's using your personal information. It can, put you and your family at risk and all these things.
Right.
Which because of this, they did keep watch. They, I had contact information, and if something happened, there was information out there. So law enforcement would know this is not a joke.
Okay.
Like if she calls, like if something happens, so there was a sense of protection there as well, like a layer of that.
Sure.
And so, I forgot what I was supposed to be saying.
Okay. I've got all these things going through my head. Yeah.
What was I going to say to you? Because I said I hadn't said it yet. Oh, what they had told me was they had been working on this case for like 2 years. Wow. So 2 years of nobody willing to say, I'm willing to help to save these kids. It was, and this is that thing of, we don't want to get involved. We don't want to, because what would happen to us? Well, what's happening to them?
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
We tend to protect ourselves. That's a natural instinct to go into protection mode for ourselves.
Right.
Yet I'm very much a person that will go into protection for somebody else over my own safety.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I'm totally that same way.
I was like, when I was little, my mom was pregnant with my brother and I heard her scream outside. I ran outside. I wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
What am I going to do at 8 years old?
Yeah.
But just that presence of another person ran off the person that was attacking my mom. Right. Like,
yeah.
So I've always had that instinct to protect others. And so for me, it was a no-brainer. It was there. I mean, I was thinking of my kids.
Yeah. Oh,
and if someone was doing this to my kids, but I want someone who had an opportunity to step up to say yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this, and maybe you may, I don't know. Because I've never, ever spoken to anyone who's been through something like this, like you have.
Neither have I.
Yeah. You're the lucky one. You're the lucky one. And by the way, thank you for being willing to go through something like that for these young kids. But
oh, yes.
Was it in Colorado that, like, were they filming there? Were they, or was it was probably all over where they were filming from? I've got these questions and not quite sure how to put them into words, but, and they were getting kids from all over, like all over the world, I'm assuming. Yes. Did you have details afterwards of like, no,
they were very closed mouth on a lot of things for the sake of protection, because the more you know, right?
Right. Oh, right. Right.
That makes sense. So what I was aware of was it was kids from here, and like from these were, when I say it was happening in 8 states and overseas, it was children there was someone in every single one of those locations who was doing this.
Yeah.
So yes, in Colorado, and I will say Colorado is a very high alert for human trafficking. I-25 goes from Mexico to Canada. It goes right through our state.
Totally.
So any state along I-25, like, and you know how the highways, the interstates go through multiple states.
Yep.
But because it's a straight shot through 3 countries, it makes it, we have a big truck stop that's pretty well known on our interstate. It was even in a movie at one point.
Oh, really?
They busted a prostitution ring there. I'm like, what? We used to go hang out there at 2 a.m. and like after football games, and we go eat breakfast there, things like that.
And it's mind-boggling to me that people think that way. Like, to think of labor trafficking, sex trafficking, to human trafficking. It's just, and I think it is for all of our listeners, that's mind-boggling. We don't have that kind of thought, like, what kind of person, and it's evil. It's just evil. A heinous crime. And the thing about human trafficking is, unlike drug trafficking, where they sell it at one time and it's done, they actually, when it comes to human trafficking, these traffickers are making money over and over and over again on one person. And so, and for those who don't know, trafficking is force, fraud, or coercion, whether that's sex trafficking, whether that's labor trafficking. It's the whole force, fraud, or coercion. So how does pornography fit into that? These traffickers are bringing in these vulnerable children, getting them in there, and then they are forced into pornography. And, it's funny because not long ago, I was watching a show and actually not just one, there was another show as well, where they were teasing and laughing, about watching porn and stuff like that. Well, the problem with that is so many of these, it is trafficking, and people don't understand that. They don't understand that this pornography, these kids are being forced to do that. Young women, young boys, they are being forced, even little. And so, and with COVID, that just skyrocketed. So even on Instagram, like there are girls that have been forced to have Instagram accounts where people pay them. And I don't understand all the ins and outs of it or how they do it. I don't know that I want to know just to prevent it, but at the same time, it's just mind boggling to me. But where, people will reach out, guys will reach out, and then what they do is they pay them. And then these girls through Instagram are sending these pictures and stuff. And it's, and I don't know the percentages. I don't know if you do, Dena, or not, but it is a very high percentage that these girls, a lot of times I think myself, before I really started learning about human trafficking, I thought, this was a choice. This was a choice to be in a pornographic movie. This was a choice to be a prostitute. This was a choice to do these things on Instagram. And it's not for so many. It is.
Right. There are a lot of people that choose to do that. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of platforms where people choose to do that. And that's okay because they're of age and that's their choice. And it's, if that's the platform that is allowing that, then that's their choice. If they want to participate in a movie like that and they want to choose to be there, right, that's their choice. And that's an industry that there are a lot of people that choose to be there. But to your point, I don't think a lot of people realize there is also a very high percentage of people that are in those industries and doing those things that they are forced to do that. And it's not what they want. And you can't tell by looking at somebody. You can't tell if that is someone who chose or not, right? Like you can't tell that. So I think it's just important to do your due diligence and pay attention and be aware. I think the other thing is we have to recognize that these things are happening in our neighbors' homes, right? Like not not my specific neighbors, but like, right. It could be in the same neighborhood. Some of these people, one of the things they did share with me, one of them that they busted lived in a high profile neighborhood where like $1 million plus homes, and they had a whole entire setup in their basement. And they become the community friend, and they become the one that all the kids want to hang out with, and they become the one. And where are the parents, right? Because the parents are just like, we've known him for a long time and there's no reason to not. And he used to have kids, so that's why all the things are here. So we justify in our head. It's okay.
Totally. Yeah.
Good
point.
And I think that translates over to when we get into situations where children are being assaulted and by a friend, by a neighbor, by, a person of trust. That's where I think there's a huge gray area between the human trafficking world and someone getting raped or assaulted, because maybe this person didn't know that they were groomed when they were little, and now this is how they're acting out, and they don't even know that they're wrong.
Yeah.
Right. There's a line where it's not really I shouldn't say it's not the person's fault. I'm a victim of rape, and so I understand, but like there are people who don't know what they're doing is wrong because of the way they were taught.
Yeah.
And there didn't used to be, when you like, human trafficking isn't stealing someone from their home all the time. It could be you go home every day.
Yeah.
There's this whole other world that's happening you don't even know.
Yeah.
And so I think we have to be very aware that the human trafficking could be happening to our child. Someone could be grooming. I have a friend of mine, she didn't know she was being groomed. And when she learned that as an adult, it was eye-opening, and it was like heart rate, like all of these devastating feelings came up because she didn't know anything was wrong.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you don't know it's wrong,
right. You don't know, and that's something. Rebecca Bender. I don't know if you're familiar with Rebecca Bender.
I've heard her name.
Yeah. So it's Rebecca Bender Initiative, and I'll put the links below for anyone. Yeah. She actually has a course where it's a find your lane course. So you can kind of find your lane of the anti-trafficking movement to see which one. Because like she says, everybody is called to a different ministry, a different mission field. Right. And each one, you don't necessarily have to do all of, fight in all of these ways, but she helps you find your lane. But the other thing she does is she has Elevate Academy, which is a school for victims that have survived human trafficking and now going through school so they can get out and actually find jobs and all of that, because there's so much that when you're trafficked, a lot of times you have a criminal record then. And then, so when you get out, you can't.
As the one being trafficked?
Yes.
How do you end up with a criminal record if you were the one that was because of, oh God.
Yep. Because for sex trafficking, a lot of times they get caught in prostitution. So they get arrested for that.
Right.
So they have these criminal records. And then when they get out, they can't find an apartment because they can't find a job. And so they're having to go through. So, speaking of finding your lane, there's legislation trying to fight those laws that prevent these girls from not getting a job afterwards. I mean, this is what they want to do. They want to contribute to society. They don't want to ever be back where they were before. And sadly enough, so many of them wind up back there because our system doesn't help them. They're, I hate to say better off, and I don't mean that, but the system is set up in a way that sometimes it's easier for them to be trafficked than to get out there because they can't have a job. They can't find they can't find a home. All of these things. So yeah, Elevate Academy is incredible. Rebecca is a survivor leader. A great book of hers, and I don't have it in front of me. I'll put that in the show notes as well. But if you go to Amazon, put in Rebecca Bender, I can't remember the title of her book, but she actually shares her entire human trafficking story in there. And she just is out there really, really doing some incredible things. But one thing that I've learned is definitely like what you were saying, Dena, is that they're groomed. I mean, in the US, like it's different in every culture. Human trafficking looks different in every culture. And in the US, the primary way of these victims being trafficked is, I don't know if I said that right, but they're groomed. They go home every night. But what's happening is they wind up finding the love of their life because this trafficker has gotten to know them on social media, figured out all the things they love, figured out, what their dreams are, their hopes are, all of this. So they then come in and they present this and, they're going to give them the moon. And next thing you know, they're taking them somewhere else and they're trafficked. And so it's really important to know that it is different in every culture, and wherever you live, it's important to understand what that is, not to scare you, not to make you feel like you shouldn't ever go and do anything, but just to be aware so you can help it, so you can stop it.
That's a big thing right here where I live. That post that you commented on was actually something I posted in 2018.
Was it really?
Yeah, it was something I had posted in 2018. I don't know if I had reshared it or why it came up for you.
Yeah,
so it's totally funny. A God thing, right?
Yep,
Him wanting me to see that. But here where I live, one of the things, and I was told this all the time growing up, don't go by yourself. Always have a buddy, especially if you're going at night.
Yeah.
And a lot of kids will think your parents are overprotective, but someone else will notice something that you won't.
Yeah.
And you're less likely to be approached if you're with somebody else.
Yeah. Yep.
And just as close as a few towns away, I had someone that I was acquaintances with a few years ago, was approached in a grocery store and they reported it, and over observation and all the things that had happened, they actually had a van outside in the parking lot. There was someone inside, this person was trolling the grocery store trying to get someone to just voluntarily walk out with them and make it seem like a no big deal. And so we have to remember that, yes, we want to be kind and help others.
Oh, for sure.
At the same time, we have to protect ourselves, not out of fear, but out of, taking responsibility for our life.
Yeah.
And so when I go to the store, I hate going to the airport at night. I hate it. But I do it. I always take a picture of where I park because I'll forget. It's just too big.
Yeah.
Right, but I don't do that at the grocery store. It's small. I don't do anything like that. But so I don't seem as aware.
Yeah.
When I'm out in the daily stuff in a parking lot, wherever in my town.
Yeah.
But it's very evident. So we have a very high homeless population in our city. We are very close to the interstate, and the road that runs through our city has been tagged and marked as a very high alert for human trafficking.
Man.
And so some of the stores that we go to are right on this road, right? We walk around town, we, all by ourselves, all the things. Yeah. But there have been times I've gone to the grocery store and I watch, I look, and I pay attention to some of the vehicles and some of the mannerisms and behaviors of people and how long they've been, sitting there and whatever. And I'm very aware of that.
Yeah.
And one day I was at the grocery store and I pull into the parking lot and there was a vehicle in the parking lot that just seemed strange, just because I don't know why. It just seemed strange to me that it was there.
Mm-hmm.
And there were people sitting in it, and I go inside, and I'm very big on, like, I watch when I drive in, and then when I get out of my vehicle, I watch people's movement around me. I'm very aware. I'll turn my head, like, I'll look around and who just got out of their car. Like, they've been sitting here since I got here, but now that I get out of my car, they're right behind me. Like, it's just something I'm aware of.
Right.
And I noticed this vehicle and I'm like, that just seems strange to me.
Yeah.
And I sat in my car. I just sat there and I watched and I watched and I watched. And not even a couple minutes later, this woman pulled into the parking lot, got out of her car. And as soon as she got out, they got out.
No.
And they're walking into the store and one stays outside and the other one goes in. So then I get out and go into the store. I look like I'm shopping. I'm following her. I was worried. It freaked me out.
Yeah.
And I was like, am I being paranoid, or is there something I need to, like, let somebody know these people, like, something is off, right?
Yeah.
So I've never shared this story with anybody. I don't even think I told my husband.
Right.
But I'm walking through the store and every aisle she would turn down, this guy would turn down. And then he'd try to talk to her and stuff. And so one time, like the third aisle she turned down, because I do a kind of a, when I go through a store, I go up and down all the aisles, and she was kind of doing that thing. And so I was kind of going opposite, right? I was going opposite. So it looked like I wasn't following them or anything. Sure. And I get up there and I just start talking to her. And I commented her outfit or something, and we just started talking. And I was like, we're newer to the area and, all these kinds of things. We just started talking. He finally just turned around and walked away. And I said, I just have to tell you. And I told her why and what happened. And so we go to the front, we go up to the front of the store. She's like, well, thank you. She's like, most people would never do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I said, it just seems strange and odd. And so I said, I'm just going to go up to the front of the store and let someone know. And she goes, can I come with you? And I said, yeah. So she's like, she thought it was odd, some of the things he was trying to talk to her about. And so we go up there, we talked to the store and let them know what was going on. And they said, thank you for letting us know. Now we can do something. They've been here like 4 times today and we don't know what's going on. We haven't seen anything suspicious, but like they can't follow them out the store. They can't follow and do that kind of stuff. And so they called the cops. And the guy, they called the cops. They had a security person, I guess, on site or whatever. And so the security person went over and started talking to them. They called the cops and I don't know what happened. I went about my business. She went about her business. We left before the cops got there. But it just goes to show that we have to remember that we have to be very aware of our surroundings. And it's not always rude or mean to say, you know what, I really don't have time to talk with you right now. I hope you have a great day, and just walk off and do your best to separate yourself from people. Yeah. Because you don't really know their motives. Their motives might not be harmful, but you don't know. Yeah. And you have to really trust your gut instinct. Yeah. Right. My gut told me something wasn't right.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
My kids know, my husband know, I'll just go up and start talking to people sometimes, or if they start talking to me in the store, I'll just start talking to them. And so that's not uncommon for me to do. Right. I'm a very socially awkward person. So it's not like, if I go to an event, I'm not just going to go up and start talking to a lot of people, but I go in a grocery store where it's not a ton of people. Yeah. But yeah, it's just, you have to be aware. And if something is off and your gut says something is off, trust it, watch it, think about it, pay attention, give it some time. Yeah. And see if there's an action that needs to be taken.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. And, and I love that you say that, because I don't want this episode to scare anybody and
No.
have you live in fear. I just want people to be aware. It is happening. I don't want you thinking, as a listener that, oh, it only happens somewhere else. It doesn't happen in my area. No, it is happening in every community throughout the country, throughout the world. And it just looks a little different depending on where you are in the world. And
I mean, also go to the grocery store at 8, 9 o'clock at night if I have to.
Right.
It's not something I'm going to do because I want to.
Right.
But
right.
my alert goes way up
when it's,
certain times of day there's more people.
Yeah.
Like during the really busy times of the grocery store, it stresses me out because I can't tell. Like, I don't like that kid is crying and the parent, like, I'm trying to hear the kid. Are they calling them dad? Are they, I get really paranoid about other people's kids during these really busy times because we never know what's happening.
Yeah.
And I know that adds to my anxiety level when I go out and about in public, and that makes it hard for me. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, like, we have to remember that we can't live in fear. Right. We can't not do things and not live life because that's not going to make it any better.
No,
but we just have to educate ourselves and choose how we are going to handle ourselves in situations the best that we can, and just pay attention to be alert, and then just enjoy yourself and have a good time.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely. 100%. So yeah. So again, I really just wanted to bring awareness in it. And as you're listening to this, since it is Human Trafficking Awareness Month, Dena's story just really, really was, just one that I guess I say thankfully, I don't even know, quite frankly, but I don't know how often that happens, but it was a story that I had never heard before. I've never, known someone or spoken to someone that, this kind of thing had happened to them. And again, not to scare you and make you live like a hermit in your home, because that's not going to solve anything, but just to be aware and to understand that these are the things that these traffickers are doing. And it's a heinous crime. It's a $150 billion a year industry.
It just makes me want to throw up.
I know. It's sickening. And
$150 billion
a year.
Money is it's full on evil.
Mm-hmm.
It just is.
It is.
Because people are making like what they're doing to people for money.
Yeah.
For money.
For sure. Sure. So,
well, thank you so much for the conversation and reaching out and being brave enough to say, hey, can we talk about this? Because I think sometimes we won't talk about things because we don't know how the other person is going to react or respond. But if you're, for the listeners, like if you're curious or you want to know something, reach out and ask someone who you trust that you feel you can have that conversation with.
Yeah.
Find the resources, all that kind of everything that you can do to help prepare yourself better and get your questions answered is very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree 100%. Just being aware of, your surroundings and aware of your kids, and just make sure that you're really just keeping a close eye on them and stuff. And again, not in a fearful way, but just in a mindful way for sure. Yeah. So, well, Dena, thank you so much for joining me again today, friend. I really appreciate it. And
thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure anytime.
Absolutely. Well, good. Well, thanks, Dena. You have a wonderful day. And again, thank you for your time today.
You're welcome. Thank you so much.
So friend, I know this was mind-boggling, right? I have no doubt you are just as baffled or just kind of surprised as I was when I heard Dena's story, to think that, wow. I think the thing that I love so much about her story is to see that there are things, which I know there are. I know that and everything I'm learning and all of that. But I mean, Homeland Security, the FBI, the CIA, all the people, that everyone is trying to prevent this. And this is so great. And I just love that. I can't imagine having a knock on the door with these men in suits and saying, hey, listen, this is what's going on kind of thing. But I told you, or excuse me, I shared this story with you, or shared, or had Dena back on the show, I guess I should say, not to make you live in fear, because that is not my intent. My intent is to inform you, to make you aware of the possibilities with human trafficking, to make you maybe just kind of take a look and say, you know what, I need to just be more aware. Friend, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and you may not like what I'm about to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. If you have children, my friend, you need to be aware of what's happening on their phones, because this is where, golly day with social media, this is how these traffickers, especially in the United States, are getting and grooming their children or their victims. So my friend, if you have a child, there is no such thing as privacy. We are called as parents to protect them and save them. And therefore, if you're not looking at their phones, by golly, you need to start doing it. I know I'm probably going to get some comments about that, about privacy, and people aren't going to like what I have to say, but I am telling you right now, and all the things that I am learning and have learned over the last couple of years about human trafficking, every parent should know what's going on their phones. Plain and simple. I'm going to tell you something. My kids hated it, but my husband looked at their phones all the time. Now, I realize there are things that they can do to, erase things and all of that. But no. I mean, they need to know, as much as they hate it. My boys hated it. But my husband got on there and looked at their phones all the time, randomly. Not just, here, you hand it over today. It was a random thing. Again, I know I'm probably going to get some hate mail on that, and that's okay. I don't have a problem with that, because right now, we need to be aware. This is something that is happening. Again, as I said in the intro, this is a $150 billion a year industry, and it is growing at a high rate of speed. And what's going on Instagram, Facebook, Instagram, I hear a lot about, these different things, but just all over, and it's not okay. And these kids are doing, these things and being coerced into some of the things that are going on through social media. So get on your child's phone. There's no such thing as privacy, my friend, not when we're trying to save them and protect them. Friend, again, I don't want to put you in fear. I don't want you to live as a hermit in your own home. But what I want you to do is be aware, because the more aware we are, the more we can fight human trafficking. If you are looking for resources just to find out more about it, whether or not human trafficking is a mission field for you, something that you want to be a part of, or whether or not you just want to learn more about it so that you are more aware, I highly, highly recommend going to Rebecca Bender Initiative. It's RebeccaBender.org. I'll put that in the show notes. You can actually go over there and learn more about human trafficking. You can actually take a course to learn, or it's called Find Your Lane. It's what I did. And just to give you an idea of all the different ways, it'll blow your mind, all the different ways to fight human trafficking. Like, we're talking about legislation. We're talking about, providing a safe place. We're talking about awareness, like what I do. That's kind of my lane, is to be able to use this platform to make people aware of what's going on with human trafficking. But there's so many more. And so you can go over to RebeccaBender.org and take that course. And then, and forgive me, I should have looked this up before I started recording this. I can't remember if it's a free course. If not, it doesn't cost very much. And honest to goodness, it's worth every single, you totally need to do it. The other thing, she also has in there the common myths, another course about the common myths of human trafficking. And it's so important to also find that out, because let me tell you, in the United States, and again, like I said at the beginning, in every culture, human trafficking looks different. And so often we think of the movie Taken, right? Where they are grabbed up and they are put in a cage somewhere, locked in a cage somewhere, or, taken off the sidewalk. A van pulls up along the side and grabs somebody. And though that is happening, my friends, it is more in the United States. It is more like they call it either grooming or they call it the boyfriend method. And, there are different terms for it, but basically what they're doing is they're spending months and months and months getting these young people, girls and boys, by the way. Another myth of human trafficking is that it only happens to girls, and that is not true. So this is happening around. We've got to understand the myths behind it so we understand what's truly happening and what we can do to be more aware of it. So friend, I highly recommend that. I highly recommend A21. They're another phenomenal organization fighting human trafficking. And as a matter of fact, I believe it was October, I'm pretty sure it's October, we did the A21 Walk for Freedom. And I highly recommend looking into that and doing that with us this year later on. I'll remind you and stuff of that, but it's the a21.org is where you'll go and you'll just learn more about not only the Walk for Freedom, but other ways, just to learn about it and become more aware. So as you can see, I'm extremely passionate about this. If you don't know my story into joining the anti-trafficking movement, I'm not going to go into it, real deep, maybe on another episode, but I will tell you at first and for months when I really felt God calling me to this mission field, there were many tears. There were many times that I begged and asked him, God, not this one. I'll go wherever else you want me to go, but not this one. This one is so hard. It just feels so impossible. It is so heavy. And I know that it is, my friend. But again, if you're not called to this mission field, I think you still need to be aware. I feel so strongly about that. So friend, thank you so much for joining me again today. I'm going to have I believe I've got another 2 or 3, I believe. Actually, now that I'm recording this, I'm not quite sure now, but I do have some more episodes regarding human trafficking coming up this month. So I will bring those to you. I've been recording so much lately, I can't quite remember how many I have. But anyway, friend, thank you so much for joining me. Wherever you are listening, be sure to subscribe to the show. Leave me, and if you're on YouTube, leave me a thumbs up, leave a comment. I would love, love, love to hear from you. So friend, thank you again. I'm so excited to be going through 2023 with you, and such an honor to walk alongside you and help you grow closer to God. So friend, I will see you back here next week with another episode of A Faithful God podcast.